President Trump rolling out a $16 billion plan to help farmers hurt by the trade conflict with China. At a White House event with farmers, the president said a deal with China is a, quote, good possibility. He also said that the U.S. campaign against Huawei could be up for negotiation, while calling the Chinese telecom giant a very dangerous threat to national security. The deal with farmers really signaling that this trade war may go on much longer than many people had originally expected. These comments about Huawei we want to talk about, though, because how they fit into the trade war. You know, you're either a national security threat or you're not. Right. And so you have to make a decision on that. And I think that's playing into this whole discussion. But speaking of Huawei, China firing back at Secretary of State Mike Pompeo over a comment that he made right here on Squawk Box. Here's what Secretary Pompeo said yesterday about Huawei's assertion that it doesn't spy on behalf of the Chinese government.
To say that they don't work with the Chinese government is a false statement.
There's a law that they must work if asked.
He's required to, by Chinese law, to do that. So it's just the Huawei CEO on that, at least, isn't telling the American people the truth, nor the world.
So overnight, a spokesman from China's foreign ministry was asked about Secretary Pompeo's comment, and he said, quote, recently some U.S. politicians have continually fabricated rumors about Huawei, but have never produced the clear evidence that countries have requested. He said the U.S. government was provoking suspicion in the U.S. public to confuse and instigate opposition. We did ask him directly what kind of evidence he had. I think it's fair to say he did not. He did not say there was specific evidence.
He said that it's clear and obvious.
He said that it's part of the law, actually.
Yeah, that they're allowed.
They would have
I think,
to.
Look, I think
but when Andrew, I was going to send this to you. Eunice tweeted it out, and it has. Well, I was going to send you recently some U.S. politicians out that exact quote, and then I was going to transpose for spokesman Andrew Ross Sorkin instead of Liu Kang, because this is exactly what you've been saying. It was almost like lifted from what there's no evidence. But you could be a spokesman.
To me, look, there is an absolute possibility. Huawei represents a national threat in that it represents the potential and risk that they can use those routers and devices to ultimately spy on us. I do not believe yet that anyone has pointed to it today. In the same way, by the way, that you could argue that, Boeing is a national threat to China, or you could argue that Intel is a national threat. Or Cisco is a national threat to China.
You remember you
so
saw
I think you just, but I think you have to parse our words, or at least be careful with what we're saying. And then in this larger trade negotiation, I would imagine you either have to decide Huawei is a national threat, potentially, and treat them as such, or not. But then to treat them as a pawn in the trade negotiation is a different story.
We did it with ZTE. We did it with ZTE.
Right. 2017 ZTE. And is this part of the negotiation?
I have to say it is a little concerning. I'd like to know if there really is a national threat. And from people I have spoken with in the industry, they believe that there could be. Yes. Has there ever been any evidence to date? Not that we know of.
Once again, it's nuanced.
It's very nuanced.
But it's nuanced in that, okay, when you're doing negotiations, all's fair in love and war. It really, and you can't be naive that we might use this as you used to call it a pawn. I think it's more like a rook or a bishop. I think it's that powerful. But it's not to say that we couldn't extract something that might make it less likely that they were able to do this as part of negotiations.
I also think it's fair and valid to say as tensions ratchet up and as relations deteriorate between the two companies, between the two countries, you're looking at a situation where they could use some of these things. And if we're looking at each other as enemies instead of trading partners and potential friends, I mean, you would be concerned about what you have.
You could do something like that, where we're going to let you in conditionally, but if we ever see that you're building out some type of monitoring or surveillance, using the innards of these devices against us, then you're...
I don't know if you've read in the latest situation between Huawei and a company that's here in the United States where they're suing each other about what's happened. If you read the details on it, it's kind of concerning. Huawei does have these relationships with a university in China where they were kind of taking some information from this other company, and there's all kinds of
There's no question that all of these telecommunication companies represent a national security threat.
There's support for this as well, and I think that's important to understand. The market might get a little bit thrown off sides by it and take a pause, but there's support for the initiative right now. I thought very interesting last night was the announcement that potentially, and now we're tackling the real issue, which is currencies. And we're talking about finally going after countries that are devaluing their currency and placing a tariff as a subsidy on the currency. That's somewhere that we've never been before, and it's an important place that I think we need to be.
It's hard to. That's another thing hard to prove, and you know, people could look at QE and talk about that. We basically all what our central bankers have done for 10 years. You don't think our currency wouldn't be stronger if we hadn't done a lot of that? I mean, we're in the same.
I think our currency is strong enough. I certainly think there are countries
a lot stronger if we hadn't devalued and if we hadn't QE'd 4 or 5 or infinity times with everything else. Too, look where we are right now. Should rates really be where they are right now with where unemployment is? And
back to Andrew's original point, though, I think it's fair to say that the president really confused the issue yesterday by making off-the-cuff comments saying, yeah, maybe it's all going to be part of it. Maybe we can include this in the trade negotiations.
He kind of says things that we know are
make his advisors go like this.
We know are probably true, but
it makes his advisors probably want to rip their hair out.
Is it counterproductive, or do the Chinese see that, oh, wait a second, so they are dangling
But it's hard to take the idea of a national threat seriously when you have the president saying things like that.
But look at how once China supposedly pulled the rug out from under us with like multiple provisions, that's when we really got serious with Huawei. It's okay, you're going to do that, then here's our answer with Huawei. And it is a significant, I mean, you read what Bannon, we're going to destroy Huawei if we can. And we're setting up, really a Cold War to go on for 20 years, us against the Chinese. And now if you bring that back a little, the next thing you know, could be like Canada. Right. Christopher, remember that?
Yeah.
It could be like that. All of a sudden we get a deal.
I can flip it around and tell you that I can go to the national security threat issue and say that if you believe that's real, and I actually believe long term it is real, then what do you do about it? Because
why would we allow that?
Are there ways you can manage it?
I think it's very challenging, especially because even if you don't have Huawei devices in the United States, you're going to have Huawei devices all over Europe, all over Africa, all over the rest of the world.
Right now. The rest of the world is
much of the rest of the world, and then that becomes a backdoor effectively for China. That becomes the larger conversation.
Wow, 6:13.
6:13.
Yeah,
we got a lot going on this morning.
Already 6:13. You know we're off Monday.
I heard.
You factored that into your mood and your.
I think that's why I spoke so much.
You're feeling good, aren't you?
Well, no, I just needed to get it out because I was going to run out of oxygen on Monday.
You got backup.